Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to all of you. We are continuing with Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 13, Nature, Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Today I'll recite Sanskrit verses from verse 8 through 12. They are all together, all 5 verses. And then we'll read the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Amanitvam adambhitvam ahimsa kshantir arjavam acharyopasanam shaucham स्थैर्यम् आत्मविनिग्रहः इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम् अनङ्कार एव च जन्म मृत्युजरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम् असक्तिरनभिवशङ्गः पुत्रदारागृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टानिष्टोपपीतुषु मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम् अरतिर्जनसंसदि अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वम् तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानम् इति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यत् अतो अन्यथा. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unminitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we see today we read verses 8 through 12, which Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that all these 20 items that we just heard, that is all he declares to be knowledge. And anything else besides this, he says, is ignorance. Now, Srila Prabhupada has very nicely described to us each and every item of knowledge. The whole purpose of reading all these 5 verses was to understand how can one come out of the bondage or entanglement. In this material world, we see that we are embodied, just like we are spirit souls, and we are embodied in this body. We are encaged in this body, which is kind of an entanglement or bondage. So these 20 items of knowledge, if we can understand the meaning behind them, then we will be able to disentangle ourselves, which means we become free. Last week, we heard about the 24 elements that constitute this body, like earth, water, fire, air, ether, etc. So the soul is entrapped into this body, which is made up of 24 elements. So this knowledge that we are going to learn today, if we can contemplate after hearing what we are hearing today, if we think about it, meditate on it, then we will be able to understand how to free ourselves from this bondage. And this knowledge, if we put it into practice, then we will be able to come to a stage of unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. If after hearing all of this knowledge, these 20 items of knowledge, and we are unable to put it into practice, then it's not really going to help us. It'll be of no value. But if we take on to the process given to us in the Bhagavad Gita, which is unalloyed devotional service, then all these items of knowledge will be acquired automatically. We will not have to, strive hard. Oh, I should get self-control. I should be humble. I should be tolerant. All these different items of knowledge, we will be able to acquire these qualities automatically. And what is the first step of this unalloyed devotional service? We've been hearing in all these chapters, right from chapter 1, actually from chapter 2 onwards till now in 13th chapter, that the first step of this ladder of bhakti yoga, this ladder of devotional service, it starts with chanting the holy names of the Lord. Very, very important. Now, in chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, verse 34, we understood tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Krishna says that if we want to understand the Bhagavad Gita, if we want to become perfect in bhakti yoga, then we need to approach a teacher, a bona fide spiritual master, which is very, very important, because it's only through the guidance and training from that teacher we will be able to make this path of bhakti yoga very, very easy for us. Now let's see, what does Srila Prabhupada describe about each of these qualities. Now the first quality that we heard as knowledge is humility. Srila Prabhupada says the description or the definition of humility is, one must not be anxious to get the satisfaction of being honored by others. Once again, one must not be anxious to get the satisfaction of being honored by others. That is humility. Not expect others to honor us, but instead be ready to honor each and every living entity. One should not be affected by duality. Oh, this person is very mean to me. This person insulted me, so I hate this person. No, one has to go above duality, whether it is happiness, distress, fame, infamy, pleasure, pain, success, failure. It doesn't matter. We have to be equipoised, kind of have the equal vision no matter what. So if one is able to understand that I am not this body, but I'm the spirit soul, and start working on the spiritual platform, then it becomes easy to become humble. And at that stage, a person does not hanker, oh, there's a hankering that so and so should respect me, so and so should make me famous, etc., etc. No, that will not be there. So Srila Prabhupada says humility is very important on this path of bhakti yoga. The next topic of knowledge is pridelessness. Now, well, if a person is humble, then obviously there is no pride. It becomes automatic. And then next step is non-violence. People generally think non-violence means not harming anyone's body. Yes, that is also not non-violence, but the actual meaning is not to put others in distress, which means we should have control over our mind, our intelligence, our speech. Even, that's the austerity of speech. We should not, by our words, put anyone in distress. That's very important. If we are also, Prabhupada says that if we are not helping others to become self-realized, then that is violence. Why? Because we have got this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which is giving us the formula to become happy and peaceful. If that is the, purpose of human form of life, if we have got this knowledge, then it behooves us that we also give this knowledge to others. And when we give this knowledge to others, then that is nonviolence, because we are helping others to get rid of the suffering. Next topic of knowledge, the item that Krishna talks about is tolerance. Tolerance is lacking in this material world. People are unable to control their anger, and because there are so many expectations, and when expectations are not met, then people get angry. But here Krishna is saying tolerance is one of the virtues. It's considered to be one item of knowledge. So if one has the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita and the understanding that one has to control the senses, then even if one is insulted or someone is really rude to us, one should not get affected, because that behavior affects the body. It doesn't affect the spirit soul. Why is it that bad things happen to good people? Well, no, bad things happen to bad people, even though they may be good in this life, but we are actually facing our past karma. So the good and bad that we have now is based on our past karma. So if one starts practicing devotional service, then one will be able to tolerate, because it's a matter of practice. Practice makes one perfect. So if one is practicing devotional service with determination, that's also important. It shouldn't be that, oh, today I am interested, and after a few, maybe after a few months or a few years, I will try to, go back to Bhagavad Gita again. And no, it's an ongoing process. It's just like when we put our child in school. The child goes through different grades, first grade, second grade, third grade, and just keeps progressing, right? It's not that after going to first grade, then the child takes a vacation of 5 years and then goes back to second grade. No, it's a constant progress. So same also in spirituality. When we start practicing Bhagavad Gita, which is performing devotional service, then that practice should continue with determination. When there is advancement spiritually, then one starts getting that virtue of tolerance. Why? Because now this knowledge is being put into practice, which is turning into wisdom. And a wise person is very easily able to tolerate. Next item that Krishna talks about in these 20 items of knowledge is simplicity. Now, simplicity doesn't mean, we wear simple clothes with no makeup and, not doing the hair, etc., no jewelry. No, that's not simplicity. Simplicity, Prabhupada says, it means straightforwardness. We are straight. We are not afraid to be honest. We are not afraid to be honest, even if someone is against us or even if someone is our enemy. That is simplicity. As I mentioned when I started this class, was one of the most important parts of these 20 items of knowledge is accepting a bona fide spiritual master. Because until and unless we accept something that's very essential, which is the spiritual master, if we do not accept a teacher, then how will we get the guidance? How will we get the training? How will we get the instructions? Because just like when our child goes to school, excuse me, there is a teacher. There's a math teacher, science teacher, history teacher, or whatever it may be. The purpose of that teacher is to give knowledge to the student, to guide the student, and to train the student. Without the teacher, it's very difficult for the student to really progress. That is applied even in spirituality. We definitely need guidance from a bona fide spiritual master. Well, let's see, when Krishna came 5,000 years ago on this earthly planet, even though he is the Supreme Lord, but to set an example, he also accepted a bona fide spiritual master, which is Sandipani Muni. Then when he came 540 years ago as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, again, he accepted a bona fide spiritual master, Ishvara Puri, just to show us that for us to succeed in spiritual life, we definitely need a bona fide spiritual master. And how should we approach such a teacher? We learned in chapter 4, where Krishna says, with humility and submissiveness. We need to inquire from that spiritual master about the purpose of human form of life. And when the spiritual master sees the sincerity of the disciple, then that spiritual master bestows mercy, and then it is possible for the disciple to make progress. Now, Krishna says that within each and every living entity, he's situated as the supreme soul, or the super soul, as called Paramatma, to guide us from within. And without outside, he appears as a bona fide spiritual master to help us so that we can make progress. But, it is important to follow those instructions. Now, let's see the word disciple. Disciple actually means discipline, which means one should follow rules and regulations, just like the state has state laws or traffic laws or traffic rules. Similarly, there are rules of the Supreme Lord also, which are compulsory to follow. There is no choice. Those who do not follow will have to face the consequences. Let's take the next item of knowledge. Then Krishna says cleanliness, very important in spiritual advancement. External cleanliness, which we all, take care of on a daily basis. Excuse me. So external cleanliness, we take care of, using the soap or the body wash or whatever it is, cleanse the body. But what about internal cleanliness? That is also important. The internal cleanliness is chanting the holy names of the Lord. When Krishna came down as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us the process, and he also showed us by his example that how chanting cleanses the heart. Cheto darpanam marjanam. That this heart is like a mirror which is covered with dust, and it needs to be cleansed so that we can become self-realized. And chanting does that. And chanting helps us to purify ourselves. The next item on the list of knowledge given is steadiness. Now, determination is very important, because without determination, one cannot achieve success in any area of life. And say, for instance, I want to start a business. Now, I obviously have to, first of all, have knowledge about what I'm getting into. And then, of course, I need the finances. Now, I somehow or the other manage the finances and I start the business. Now, once I start the business, it is important that I am sincere and serious about that business, that there is determination, that I'm steady on this path of business. If I don't, then obviously my business is going to suffer. Similarly, steadiness on the spiritual path is very, very important. And that will be possible when we have good association. When we associate with like-minded people, then it becomes very, very easy. Krishna tells Arjuna that one of the items of knowledge is self-control. Now, self-control is possible when we follow the rules, controlling the senses, accept what is favorable, reject what is unfavorable. So, just like, let me take an example of driving on the highway. I have the driver's license. I have a nice car. There's gas. It's very comfortable, etc. And I'm driving on the highway. Now, I have a choice to follow the traffic rules or just break them. So if the speed limit is 55, and if I choose to drive at 80 miles per hour, I have to face consequences. Why? Because I've broken the law. That is the law. So similarly, there are laws of the Supreme Lord also. If we do not follow them, then we have to face the consequences. So it's important that we accept what is favorable and reject what is unfavorable on the spiritual path. just like we teach our children also that, they should keep good association. I remember when my son was entering the first grade, both my husband and I went with him to the school. His first day of school, he was very nervous because it was a new school, new class, new teacher, new children, new, students, etc. So when we were talking to the teacher, then after that, I even very, very clearly remember telling my little boy, who was, I guess, 5 or 6 years old, that I don't know whether he understood, but I remember telling him to keep good association. Now, I had not read Bhagavad Gita at that time, but I don't know why. I just told him that make sure that you associate with good children, in the sense, good children in the sense, those who like to, listen to the teacher, they do their homework, they pay attention, listening to what the teacher has to say, etc., etc., and not associate with those who are, mischief makers, or, want to create trouble. So association is very, very important. We teach our children also to, keep good association, whether they are in school or college or even in corporate world. Why? Because association affects our consciousness. We need to remember that. As it is said, we are known by the company we keep. So if we associate with like-minded people, like for instance, those who are interested in spirituality, those who are interested in reading Bhagavad Gita, hearing Bhagavad Gita, or chanting, then their association will rub off on us, and we will be able to improve our own consciousness also. Next topic that Krishna tells Arjuna is one of the items of knowledge is real renunciation. Unfortunately, most people think that just by wearing saffron robes, one is considered to be renounced, or someone who has, long beard and long matted hair, or, no, that is not the description of real renunciation. Real renunciation is in consciousness. What is the state of our consciousness? That is what decides whether we are really renounced or not. A person who is really renounced accepts what's favorable and rejects what's unfavorable, is aware what is good for spiritual life and what is not good for spiritual life. And such a person, if a person is really renounced, then his or her senses don't go in different directions. They are very much under control. The senses, if they are not under control, they can take us in different directions. And Krishna tells Arjuna that the mind is higher than the senses. So mind, senses, then mind. Intelligence is higher than the mind, you see, and the soul is higher than the intelligence. So when we have been given this philosophical intelligence by the Lord, then we can sharpen it with the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Now, if we somehow or the other get trapped into the you can say trapped by the senses. In other words, if we start catering to the demands of the senses, then there's going to be bondage. So just satisfying the senses or the body is not enough. It's not a good idea, in the sense we should take care of the body and soul together to the extent it is necessary, but not go beyond it. Now, if you notice, the topmost, or you can say the most difficult of all the senses to control is the tongue, because the tongue likes to vibrate, in other words, speak, and also taste food, different kinds of food. But we can regulate the tongue, control the tongue by eating food that has first been offered to the Lord, which is called prasadam, or sanctified food, and also use the vibrating part of the tongue for chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is a very nice book by a great sage called Rupa Goswami, It's called Nectar of Instruction. And in that very first verse, he says, Vacha Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jivha Vegam, Udarupastha Vegam. If he says that if somehow or the other we can control the tongue, Jivha, Vacha Vegam. Vacha means speaking, the speech, if we can control the speech. Manasa means the mind, control the mind. Krodha, which is anger. And so if we can control the tongue, then we are able to control all other senses very easily. And all this will be possible simply by chanting the holy names of the Lord. Now, the next topic of knowledge given by Krishna is, excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm still recovering from the flu. So, so the next topic of knowledge that Krishna is talking about is absence of false ego. The big question is, what is false ego and what is real ego? Srila Prabhupada explains, false ego means I am this body. When I think I'm this body, that is false ego. When I think I am the spirit soul, that is the real ego. When one is able to understand, excuse me, that I am not this body and I am the spirit soul, and also I'm the eternal servant of Krishna, just like it's called Aham Brahmasmi, I'm the spirit soul. That is real ego. That is where a person can be understood to be on the platform of self-realization. As soon as a person starts talking about I, me, and myself, I am, that is applied to the body, and that is false ego. But once when gives up this false identification of the body, then that is real ego. Then Krishna talks about perception of evil of birth, disease, old age, and death. It's important to understand that birth, disease, old age, and death, these are 4 miseries of this material world. When a child is born, before the child is born, the child is in the womb for 9 months. And it is not a comfortable position at all. To be in this position for 9 months, it's very, very difficult. That is suffering inside the womb. So birth is painful. I have never heard or seen any child being born laughing. All children that are born up, they come out crying. Why? Because they have been in that miserable condition. That is a suffering. Disease is also a suffering. You see me right now, I'm suffering because of the disease of the flu. So disease also is a suffering. Old age is suffering, and death is also a suffering. So an intelligent person would want to find a solution to all these miseries, how to end all these miseries. And the simple process is given to us in the Bhagavad Gita. Of course, no one likes to suffer, but no one is really trying hard to do anything about ending this suffering. But knowledge is here. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is giving the knowledge how to end the suffering for good. Not that we end the suffering now and then again after a few days we have some more suffering. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to come out of this cycle of birth and death. The next item of knowledge that Krishna tells Arjuna is detachment from the family. Now, people don't like to listen to this. They don't want to hear this. Why? Because we are all attached to our families. We don't want to think about detaching. The good news is that detachment from family does not mean that we don't have love and feelings or emotions for our family. No, it is very natural for us to give affection and love to our family. But what here Krishna is talking about is attachment to the family. Attachment is when we only think about the welfare of the body of our family. But affection is when we think about both the material body of our family and the spiritual well-being also of our family. That is affection. if it is just attachment, that means it's only concerning with the body. So we should take advantage of this human form of life that we have, and take on this knowledge and understand it, and then put it into practice. Training is essential. How to regulate the senses, it's not very easy. Even Arjuna, he was telling Krishna that it is easy to control the mind, control the wind, than to control the mind. Because the mind, starts running here, there, everywhere, every second. It's very difficult to control the mind. For him, for Arjuna, it was easy to control the wind. Of course, it's very difficult to control the wind also, but for Arjuna, that was easier than controlling the mind. But here, Krishna is trying to explain to Arjuna the meaning of detachment. See, happiness and distress is part of this material world. We cannot escape that. Whatever seeds we have sown, they're going to fructify whether we like it or not. If I have sown seeds of lemon, I'm not going to get mangoes from that tree. Definitely not, because I sowed the seed of lemon. Similarly, if I have done some bad actions, I have to face bad reactions. That is karma. There is no escape. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us how not to get affected by all this, how to remain detached. And that is possible when we, start chanting on a daily basis. Just like I had the flu and the doctor gave me the medicine, I had to take it every day, 3 times a day. I cannot say, no, let me take one dose now, and the next one I'm going to take after 1 month. No, it has to be constant. I have to continue the medication for me to get rid of the disease. Similarly, if we really want to get free of all these miseries, then we need to chant on a daily basis. So when we do that, then automatically there's going to be no more agitation. There's going to be no more hankering. We will not get affected by miseries or, distress or whatever it may be. So that's why Krishna says one of the important items of knowledge is constant, unalloyed devotion to him. He says that in these few verses that we read today, verses from 8 through 12, where he talks about the 20 items of knowledge. One of them is constant. That is what is constant. Just like we breathe every day, we eat every day, we sleep every day, we work every day, we do everything every day. So why not chant every day? Why not perform unalloyed devotional service every day? And this we can, it becomes easier to do when we continue to keep hearing the Bhagavad Gita again and again and again. You see, in this material world, it is not possible to live in a solitary place. Like Arjuna wanted to go to the Himalayas. He wanted to give up the family and, just go to the Himalayas and meditate. No, that's not possible. It's not possible for us to remain aloof. But what is under our control is to make sure that we associate with right people. We don't mingle unnecessarily and waste time. And Krishna tells Arjuna that self-realization is very, very important. And Bhakti Yoga is a process that can help us to become self-realized, which means understand who we really are, what is our position, what is our relationship with the Supreme Lord, what is our prescribed duty. Most of us don't even know. In general, people think my duty is, to educate myself, get married, have children, educate my children, get them nice jobs, get them married, take care of their children, etc., or have a nice bank balance, buy a house, buy a car. This is not what Bhagavad Gita is talking about. Yes, we can do all that, but our prescribed duty is to become self-realized. And for that, we definitely need guidance. Those who are intelligent, they inquire. Yes. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. There has to be inquiry. Who am I? Why am I here in this material world? And why am I suffering? But the most important question should be, how can I end this cycle of suffering? And the process is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Very nicely, Krishna is giving step-by-step knowledge to us in the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, when we go to the next chapter, number 14, which is entitled Modes of Material Nature, where Krishna will, give very, very basic knowledge about how we can elevate ourselves from ignorance to passion to goodness, and then go beyond that to the level of pure goodness, how we should not get entangled in the modes of material nature. So these are all the items of knowledge that Krishna is giving to Arjuna for us, actually. And for the very first one he talked about is humility. And humility is very, very important for us to even understand the Bhagavad Gita. Now, if I, think I know it all, I know everything, there was, I heard this very nice story that one gentleman went to a gathering where they were discussing the spiritual knowledge, and he thought, let me go and hear it out. So he was sitting right in front, in the very first row. And as the speaker was, talking about the different aspects of spirituality, etc., as soon as he said, just let's take for an example, he was discussing this verse from today. And he said, Krishna says humility. And this gentleman says, I know it, I know it. And then he went on to the next topic. He said, Krishna says tolerance. Oh, yes, I know it, I know it. So this gentleman kept saying, I know, I know, I know everything. So the speaker told him, if you already know everything, what are you doing in this gathering? There is no need for you to be here. You see, that humility has to be there, that I actually don't know anything and I want to hear it with an open mind, think about it and see if this is something I would like to follow. So humility is the beginning of accepting knowledge. And to accept knowledge, we need to come to the level that I am not the Supreme Lord, I'm just an eternal servant of Krishna. When one, hears Bhagavad Gita in that consciousness, then that person is able to understand real knowledge. And once a person starts understanding real knowledge, then there is no more entanglement, then there is no more bondage, then there is freedom. Now, for us to take on the knowledge theoretically is a first step, but then we need to go to the next step, which is application of this knowledge. And the very first step of application is chanting the holy names of the Lord, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So if you don't mind, I would like to chant one round. If that is okay, please give me a thumbs up. If you would like to chant with me one round, or you would like me to chant just for a few minutes. Okay. I have just one thumbs up, so I'll just chant for a few minutes. And if I may humbly request you to please chant along with me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So I just chanted 10 times, but if we can chant 108 times, that would be one round. So it's my very humble request to all of you to please chant if you're not chanting every day. So I'm going to stop here.